Today we're going to be talking about how do we have data integrity on the blockchain. So kind of the goal I want for this panel to be is, I think that's a concept that people have heard but don't necessarily understand the how. So we've got us here, and hopefully we can kind of make it simple for the audience to take away why would we try to put data on a public, private, whatever blockchain. What is the purpose? So briefly, let's start with brief introductions of your company, and then we'll just get into it. So Stefan.
Okay, so my name is Stefan Nilsson. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Unisot, with a brave name or brave association to the universal source of truth. So talking about blockchain there, I think we can use blockchain as a global data layer for all actors in the supply chain, and we're going to jump into that. So we also have some solution for seafood chain that I was a little bit famous for in the beginning. And actually, this week we are launching a new product called Sign on Chain. I will talk about that on Friday, so don't miss that. So shameless plug for that. Happy to be here to discuss this.
Chris.
Chris Light, CEO and co-founder eLivestock Global. We're a healthy cow company. We started in Africa dealing with the humanitarian case. Basically, we use blockchain for provenance and proving that the cows are receiving treatment, and there are other applications that go from there.
Hi, I'm Shem Booth Spain, CEO of Blaircast. Blaircast is a next-generation music distribution platform built on the blockchain.
Great. So Stefan, you mentioned seafood chain. Can you just kind of articulate why would we put that type of data on a public ledger? Because I think for most people, today we store them in databases and they're private. Why would we do that?
Yeah, so the reason is very simple. In my experience, in my previous work as an integration architect for many years, I realized that you have a lot of data, but they're all closed in data silos in every single company. And then you have to build integrations between them to exchange information. And 10, 15 years ago, that worked. You could build point-to-point interfaces between all these different systems. But in today's changing world, where a company are changing suppliers and distributors more regularly, it's not feasible to build new interfaces every time that happens. So I realized that we need a global database, or my first idea was to have this centralized database where everybody should connect to the same universal source of truth, so everybody have the same data. But that has been tried for many years by many companies, IBM, SAP, Oracle, all of them have been trying to build this centralized database, and it doesn't work. It's proven it doesn't work. And that's the same problem with private blockchains, which I see just a centralized database. So that's why we are using the public blockchain, and I think I'm totally convinced that it's only the public blockchain who can solve this, that we can use as a global data layer, so that every actor in the supply chain now can connect to that data layer and exchange information with each other. And what we get with that is that now we can connect even the smallest producer or farmer, fisherman, or carpenter or something like that to this global supply chain, so they can contribute with their information. And by doing that, we can really prove quality of products, or we can prove that products are sustainable, that they are ecological, where they are coming from, how they have been treated, how the people have been treated, like all of the things that is now coming up with the new EU regulations, the EU supply chain due diligence laws, and there is new regulation from EU now, the digital product passport. So these are the things that we can support with a public blockchain like we are talking about here today.
And Chris, I think you're working on somewhat similar solutions to Stefan with your company. So could you kind of talk about how you are integrating blockchain?
Sure. And I've been working with technology for 25 plus years in the international global development space, and it's about the right tool for the job. And so when we started looking, gosh, it was about summer of 2019, I was giving a lightning talk on blockchain, actually, and my co-founder, Max, was actually in the US wearing a cowboy hat, and he's been working on traceability in livestock for years, and we sat down and we looked at what would be the right way to solve this problem, and we came up with blockchain. So, and it's initially, you collect that data, but then the opportunities from there, and you use blockchain for verification, but the opportunities from there we're seeing are unexpected and almost endless.
And Shem, so you're definitely not related to these industries dealing with music. So how is Blaircast how are they strengthening the data for music artists such that they can benefit, make some money?
So in regards to music distribution and blockchain, now it's actually a huge subject because blockchain can be used to obviously store data on it. You can verify usage by hashing small components of information, such as the product from Kensei and nChain, which is an incredible product for using blockchain integration for your business, but in a kind of out-of-the-box solution. For us, with a modular-based, innovative music distribution platform that enables artists to be able to monetize their content. And because of a modular fashion, we're able to plug in different Web3 technologies. And I think that's quite interesting because if you enable usage and actual utility of blockchain, you're able to garner a lot of efficiencies compared to traditional older systems, as you guys have mentioned. And I think that kind of vision of using blockchain to enable more efficient processes that are commercially beneficial, I think is the real key of how one can implement blockchain into their own business.
So based off what I've seen over the last few years, I think a lot of people that want to come in know they want to integrate with blockchain, but what they mean by that are different things. They might mean Bitcoin, they might mean Ethereum, they might mean Hyperledger, they might mean proprietary tech. So Chris, I noticed on your site, you say you distinguish between the two. So I want to ask, what blockchain are you guys using to facilitate this stuff?
Yeah, we're using the Kensei product. One of the reasons we differentiate between Bitcoin and blockchain is half the time you're sitting down with someone, you're having a conversation, then you realize, wait, they're talking about crypto. They're not talking about what we're all about blockchain in the supply chain space. So
you're using Kensei?
Yes, we're using Kensei.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can you talk through how that's helped your company?
Oh, absolutely. The thing that we're excited about is the sort of infinite scalability. It's a product that really now 20% of the world's livestock are in Africa, so that's a big deal. It's a big deal for people in Europe as well. This is a destination market, but to really get and we're talking with governments about national systems. So some of these countries have just millions and millions of cows, and then also. Our system works with other kinds of livestock. So without the Kensei product, there's no way we're going to get to these national systems.
So for me, what I'm trying to understand is how does that help you gain efficiency? Where exactly are you able to cut cost and
Well, the big thing is in automation, which we've been able to do with blockchain, in that a lot of these, our initial humanitarian use case in Zimbabwe was where they had 50 to 100,000 cows that died. They don't actually know how many because they didn't really have systems. They had paper-based systems, if anything. So that was where we came in with our solution, and we solved that. And now we're looking at national, even regional systems. We've had a conversation with the African Union about rolling out a regional system.
So yeah, even though I'm fully entrenched in the Bitcoin space the last 4 years, before I was an ERP consultant, so Stefan and I have very similar backgrounds, and the pain points he talks about are definitely true. Having to build new custom integrations every time they want to bring something in new, and it is a huge pain, but we haven't seen that take off. So, Stefan, why do you think that is? Is there no demand? Is it because they don't know what chain to pick?
There is a lot of misinformation and directly misinformation out there, or misunderstandings. Like Chris started on here, often when you mention blockchain, so when we go out to customer, we don't sell blockchain solutions. We are selling supply chain traceability, supply chain sustainability solutions. But of course, in some time of that conversation, it comes up, what technology are you using? And then you say we are using blockchain technology, and then it starts. Then you start the interesting discussion about, no, it's not crypto, no, it's not a scam, no, and all of these things, so you have to re-educate them. So there is absolutely a need, there is a big need out there for this kind of solutions, but we still have these problems to actually, because to re-educate customers and talking about that we actually have the blockchain technology and not the crypto craze and the NFT craze and all of that, but actually a system that works and scales. And often customers have a misunderstanding that the company has to know blockchain themselves. And I know a lot of competitors in the blockchain space, they are trying to educate the customers in using the blockchain themselves. But my view is that just like every company today, everyone is using internet, but very few companies actually know HTML or SMTP or TCP/IP or anything like this. They are just using the public internet. I think it should be the same thing for companies. Companies are not interested in learning new technology and running their own node or running their own server or anything like that. They just need solutions to their problems. So I think that the way we solve this is just to give them that service. So we will work more like a blockchain service provider, just like you have an internet service provider, so that you get access to the functionality, but you don't have to re-educate your whole IT department or run your own nodes or anything like that. It's all up in the cloud.
Yeah, and I think that's been a big hurdle for clients to grasp the why and the how. Yeah. And one thing I learned working is that I think, at least I had this perception, I mean, I'm fairly young, but that these companies actually know what they're doing. That example you gave, Chris, about knowing how many cattle you have. One of my clients in the past, I mean, sure, they enter their inventory in the system. That doesn't mean it's right. They didn't know, right? So being able to, if you can just get to 90%, 95%, that's huge, because that's a big difference between I don't know. So, Shyam, I want to come back to you. For an artist, right? So we just talked about the demand issue, right? And the education, which is a huge problem. Why should an artist come to Blaircast? Because obviously, if you pitch them on data integrity, they want to make money. So
yeah, I think I had a conversation about this earlier with someone else at the conference. It's all about consumer need, and we in business, we're trying to make products that solve genuine consumer needs or business needs. And every applicable use case of blockchain has its own unique situations and events. And what you said about the blockchain as a service, blockchain providing that service to businesses so that they can essentially use this technology for the benefit of their business. Coming back to artists and what artists need, what do rights holders need? They need to be paid, they need security of payment, they need fast payment, and that's the applicability of the music industry. But I think the greater question here is, what is the applications of blockchain and why and how they are useful for one's own specific business use case? And it's a huge untapped resource waiting to, we're in this convergence between AI, blockchain, biotech, fourth industrial revolution, and blockchain is part of that. And just as you guys touched on, the speculative nature of crypto has tarnished the evanescence and flavor of blockchain, and it's so much noise out there. So I think coming back to the basics, what is blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain? Can we store data on it? Yes, it's more than just a token to trade back and forth. It's more beyond speculation. And this is where we're unlocking this whole new universe of how Bitcoin blockchain can be used. Dr. Craig Wright, I quote Dr. Craig Wright, said a great comment. He said, Bitcoin is everything, meaning you can use it for all different services. We've heard from cows, enterprise application integration, one unified system to bring other systems together. And obviously, we're hearing from the music industry how it can help speed up payments for rights holders. And that's just some of the use cases that we're seeing. And I'm sure there's going to be some great use cases we'll see over the next few days. So I think it's a huge untapped resource. Everyone's looking for, hang on, how can I actually, now the speculation's gone, now the noise is gone, how can we use this technology to increase efficiency, make business processes more secure, better trust, increase the efficiency of a specific supply chain, in my case, music, yeah? And so on and so forth. And I think that's fascinating. I think there's so much interesting use cases, and over the next 3 days, we're learning more about these applications and discovering this new undiscovered country that's waiting to be explored, so, yeah.
So, go ahead.
I have a comment there as well, that the question we often get from customers is, yeah, you have the blockchain, you can store data on it, but yeah, we can do that in a database as well, or a distributed database even. But there is a big difference, because what you have in a blockchain is also the payment functionality, that you can now actually start monetizing information, and that's probably exactly what you are doing with the music industry and so. That you can put a price on very small pieces of information, down to like one temperature or a location or a piece of music. Put a price on that down to a tenth of a cent, and now actually make new revenue streams on your data. So most companies today have big data warehouses with a lot of data that they mostly used internally. Now they can actually put price on every single piece of data and start selling and buying that with all your partners in supply chains, and by that get the economic incentive to exchange information. So first of all, you have the global data layer with the blockchain, which give you the tool to exchange information, but that's not enough. You also need the economic incentive to start exchanging information. So that's a big point with using blockchain, and be able to do nano transactions as we are with our blockchain, to have high scalability, millions of transactions per second for very, very small transaction fees, like tenths of a cent or hundreds of a cent even, and be able to use that efficiently and get the economic incentive.
Yeah, so that is a key point, I think. And I think even through this talk, I'm kind of understanding one aspect that maybe why businesses haven't hopped on board. So you mentioned the ability to commoditize this. So, you know, there's still, even with blockchain, I think there's even more skepticism to something like Bitcoin, right? And, you know, unfortunately, because of all the stuff we mentioned with the media and the misinformation, that, you know, the use of Bitcoin is that, well, we can drop the floor, say with PayPal, 30 cents of a transaction down to almost zero. So to try to say, oh, well, this isn't useful for X is arrogant, because we don't know what people are gonna do when the cost of the transaction goes down, right? It's like a new market. Just like before, you had to mail checks. We don't do that anymore. But I think one way to get these companies on board, there's two ways, and I'm gonna ask you a question in a second, Chris, about this, is I think more people would jump on if you say you can make more money versus you can save cost, right? Because even though they're technically the same thing, I think to a business owner or even an end user, that's much more appealing, right? So Chris, you mentioned back when we were backstage about farmers are benefiting from this. Could you talk about how are they actually able to make money from this?
I was actually going to jump in before the question, because we're actually not about the information. And this is just, I'm speaking in the African use case. Because of instabilities with currency and financial systems, a lot of people in Africa, rather than putting money in a bank or putting it under a mattress, they invest in their farms. They invest and so livestock is an asset. Now, if you think about it from a smallholder farmer perspective, if, say, the school fees come due, they need to sell something to pay for their school fees. The person doing the transaction, they know this. So suddenly the price of the commodity drops, the price of the animal drops. So now with our system, they can collateralize their asset, and we can do it with a smart contract, we can do it with insurance, and suddenly there's flexibility. It also allows us to sort of smooth out market fluctuations, which is a big deal right now in a high inflationary environment.
And I'm not sure the nature of these transactions on the chain, but let's say if some of that data became public, that would help other prospective clients understand, oh, this is the value of this thing. Because it's, one thing I've been discussing with kind of some of the latest things happening on the BTC network, when finally they're doing tokens, is that if you're trading directly on chain, that is the price, right? But if someone's doing some peer-to-peer exchange, that's just, handshake deal, that price that's not registered anywhere except maybe their books, maybe, right? Because, and that's another point that I don't know if we'll get into, but
I was going to say, the way we look at this is the financial institution that's extending the credit, they also can manage their risk in that they have access to the records. So they can, there's a situation where you wind up with ghost assets. There's recently, I'm not going to pick on the place, but there was recently a case where a farmer had 80,000 cows on paper that didn't actually exist. And this wasn't in Africa, this was in the United States, and it doesn't just happen there. So this is another way that a financial institution can manage their risk, and then when they can do that, they lower the cost of capital. One of the issues we deal with in Africa is people borrow at what I call credit card rates. Some of their, what they think is a good interest rate, we think of as, oh, this is a bad deal from a bank.
And one thing, I'm not in that industry, but one thing I'm envisioning is, well, instead of taking their books or maybe their paper ledger to try to pitch to get capital, they can just give them TX IDs that are on the ledger, and they can independently come to the same conclusion. So it's all,
That's exactly it, and it acts as the honest brokers we like to say.
That's interesting you said about data, Bitcoin, data coin. The kind of meaning is in the word, and often I think that kind of gets overlooked. Our understanding is grown where we, if I send you a transaction on the Bitcoin blockchain, I can put data in that transaction. What happens if I link to a hash to an MP3 and I send you an MP3 and you pay for it and you get the receipt in the transaction? These new use cases of where we're understanding a higher level of what Bitcoin can do, the blockchain, Bitcoin blockchain. And I think that's where we've got to come back to a bit of a renewed understanding of what Bitcoin is, what the blockchain is. And especially with this whole data understanding, how can we start using the open ledger as a repository of data? You can have private blockchains. You could have a private blockchain on the blockchain. So you wouldn't want to share your dental records if you was a dentist, right? And so, we don't have to have lots of different blockchains, lots of different coins. And the concept of the Bitcoin is that there's one unified ledger in which all coins are brought on. And I think that's a really interesting concept, and particularly when you think about honesty as well, and the truth mechanism of having a shared ledger. The data I send to you is recorded, you've got a receipt, it's on the blockchain. There's lots of customer, business, commercial applications by just thinking about how we can put data in a transaction when we send. What can we do with that? What files can we use? What needs to be recorded? And record keeping is the basis of all transparent business, isn't it? And there's many things that need to be recorded, transactions from customers, or maybe there's important data. So it's really, working with, blockchain experts, understanding your business challenges, and looking at the areas that you can streamline and make more efficient, by actually utilizing the blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain, to make your data faster. And like you say, save money or make money, yeah? And I think the making money concept that you said about is actually quite interesting as well, because a new business use case that can be built from it, or a new customer service that can be provided, that is how unlocking Bitcoin technology and the blockchain generates wealth. It's a kind of meta wealth, yeah? And that's an area ripe for development. Often I think, the crypto market, I say with hashtag around the edge, but often I think that that's a test case for the true Bitcoin blockchain. Because remember, Bitcoin SV, Bitcoin Satoshi's vision, is actually the restored original protocol of Bitcoin. So it means it's the original, the real, and it does 100,000 transactions currently today a second. So BTC does, what are we, five transactions?
Give or take.
If we're lucky. And and Ethereum does 7. And what you guys mentioned about throughput, if you're able to do 100,000 transactions a second, that's pretty much the fastest blockchain currently on planet Earth right now. There's no other technology, yeah, that equals this pedigree. This is the very forefront of blockchain technology. And not only can you put smart contracts into a transaction so that then Bitcoin can do Turing complete, well, there's a number of ways you can do Turing completeness on Bitcoin, but that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
But the programmability of the blockchain, that's what I'm talking about, the programmability of the Bitcoin blockchain to unlock new business models, new commercial applications. It's better savings, make money.
Yeah, so the making money thing, and you know, folks were in here for the panel before last, I talked about how I think it needs to be grassroots. And you know, if it's the people, the end folks on the ground, you know, I think the sales issue of getting the companies to adopt will go away if you get their buy-in. Because if they see that this tech can enable them to make more money, they're gonna ask their business partners to do it, and then all you gotta do is walk in the door, right? Because they already want it. You don't have to sell them on anything. Because especially since there's so few companies that are, you know, even trying because there isn't any adoption, right? So, I mean, when they're pitching to a different business. So I think that is a big key aspect that we really need the guy on the ground to make money, because then he's gonna ask for it. And then they're just gonna have to say, okay, we'll give it to you.
That's a very interesting point to, we call it gamifying data collection.
Yes.
So that you can involve every people that are involved in creating your clothes or building your car or growing your food, that you could actually give back to them and give them like a nano transaction for their data points. So now it becomes like a game, like Pokemon that was so popular a couple of years ago. Everybody did Pokemon. Just imagine if we could do the same thing on a factory floor or on a farm or something like that. So every time you take some data point with your mobile phone, you get a couple of cents. And depending on how valuable that information is, so if everybody takes the same data point, it gets down in value. But if you have valuable data points, now you again put a value on data, and that can be used in the whole supply chain, not only for the producer, but also for insurance companies to know about the crop, how's the earth quality, how much was it raining, and so on. That can go to insurance company, to investors, to a lot of different other than just the normal supply chain companies.
Yeah, so we're getting close to time here. Chris, if you want to just give any final thoughts on this conversation and kind of the immediate future here.
Yeah, a lot of the things that my colleague just mentioned are things that we're thinking about in terms of artificial intelligence and satellite imaging, and also, you know, there's a concern, I think worldwide, there's a question of how to keep young people on farms. So we think about, as we look at future iterations, we think about maybe some sort of gaming or scoring system, which would also have tremendous benefits in terms of, you know, well cared for animal, gets a high score, but also is a well cared for animal, and that's where we talk about the instead of Carfax, the Cowfax, the more comprehensive and the better the report on the animal, the greater the value. So.
And imagine if those are exchangeable, the ownership, right? And Shem?
So we're in an incredible part of history at the moment. It's, you know, where this technology is going is only winding slowly. And I think product is king. And I think often businesses look at other businesses to see how they apply blockchain usage. They look at how it worked for them. And because of the speculative nature of the crypto market, that's kind of polluted businesses' perceptions of blockchain. And I think that's why events like this are so important, to raise awareness about what actual utility is provided, show use cases, and explain the basic technical tenets so people can start to look at that and use that for their own projects and businesses.
Yeah. All right, thanks guys. We're going to end right on time. So I hope everyone learned something here today. Thank you guys.